Now we're in the building. We are in the building, folks, the digital building, the virtual building. As y'all are checking in, shout yourselves out in the comment section, and let's get into what we need to get into here. Hope everybody's having a good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it happens to be when you are checking this out, whether you are watching it live or you are watching on replay. And y'all see the topic. You see what we're going to talk about here. We got some things that we're going to get into. We need to get in and out of this quick. We got about 30 minutes. So I have a call coming up. So get in here, shout yourselves out in the comments section, and let's get to what we need to get to. I'm taking a lot of steps today. I did almost 15,000 steps, 14,000 steps, 10 miles today already. And my feet hurt. I bought some insoles. I bought some insoles to go inside of these shoes. Because I know how it is, so I'm ready for that. What's going on, players, coach? What's going on, my dude? As y'all coming in, shout yourselves out in the comments section. Tell me your name, location. We're gonna get started in like 15 seconds because we don't have time to waste. Y'all saw the video I put up this morning. Y'all saw the reel that I posted this morning. That full video is gonna be on YouTube in a couple of days. I put the full video on Facebook, as a matter of fact. I'm putting it on LinkedIn too. Is stepping up your urgency. Step up your sense of urgency. Everybody needs to step up their urgency. That's not specifically the topic here today, but really that's the topic every day. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete. I'm the author of 31 books. I'm the creator of this whole framework brand and business. It's called Working Your Game. It's all about taking the tools that help you succeed in sports, get to the top 1% in the sports world, and taking those same tools to get to the top 1% in what you do. Specifically when it comes to mindset, strategy, accountability, and execution. And if I had to describe myself, I'm that guy that when you get done talking about all the things you want to do and that you're going to do and that you need to do and you're serious about actually doing them, I'm the guy that you call. I'm the guy that you call because we're going to create first of all, we're going to get your mind in the right space. Then we're going to create a strategy for you to actually do it. We're going to make sure that you're being held accountable to doing it. And then we're going to make sure you execute and actually get it done and get real results. So if that sounds like what you're looking for, I sound like the kind of person that could help you get to where you want to go, then what you need to do is go to that link right there or send me a text. Whatever way, I give you many different ways you can enter into my world. So you can follow me on IG. You can start with that wherever you're listening to this. And then send me a text, and then you could go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can start working with me direct. But we're going to talk about today good players versus difference makers. And I was just giving a speech this morning at this conference in Orlando. I'm in Orlando. And one of the things that I talk about at the end of my presentation is the difference between a good player and a difference maker. That's what I want to talk about here. And there was a guy who came up to me after the presentation, and he just got promoted. And this is the kind of conference that a lot of you need to be coming to. This conference I was at today is a talent development conference. There's a whole company whose whole thing is helping talent develop. And it doesn't mean you have to be brand new. It's about helping people step their game up. Talent development. Oh, you had talent, right? This is about developing your talent. It's a whole conference. This is a 5-day conference. This is a huge event. And it's at the convention center down here. And any of you ever been to a convention center in Orange County or Orlando, you know it's a huge event. It's a huge venue. And this is where companies, check this out, companies send their staff to events like this on purpose so that they can get continuing education and continuing development so that they can develop their game. These are the kind of events. When I did a podcast episode months ago, probably a year ago, where I told you why you need to be going to events. I don't care whose events you go to. What's going on, Arbin? My dude, I don't care whose events you go to. Whether you go to my event and as an individual person, whether you go to some big conference and it's 30,000 people there, you go to a TED event, you go to Tony Robbins, whoever. You need to be going to events because, first of all, those are the places where people are specifically making material to help you grow. And secondly, the people in the room, the audience members, they're the kind of people who are seriously trying to go and make themselves better the same way that you are. So you need to be where they're at. So anyway, at the end of my presentation today, one of the things that I closed out with was telling people that there's a difference between being a good player and being a difference maker. And a lot of people out here are just good players. Most of you who are listening to this, you're at least a good player because you're trying to get better, or at least you're thinking about it. The difference makers are the people who make the difference. I mean, that's why they're called difference makers. So that's what I want to talk about here today. And I want to tell you what's the difference between the two. So I got how many points I got here? 3 things I want to share with you. The difference between a good player and a difference maker. And if any of you have a question or a comment about anything that I say, post in the comment section and I'll address it at the end. We're only going to go about 30 minutes here because I got a call coming up in a minute. So there are 3 types of players on every team. You got bad players, good players, and difference makers. Now, I don't have to talk about bad players because if you're a bad player, you're not even... Bad players don't even follow me on social media because the stuff that I talk about is all about growth and development and getting better. So if somebody's a bad player, they're not trying to grow, develop, or get better. So they would never even listen to me in the first place, let alone would they be following me, let alone would they be in this live. So we don't have to talk about them. The good players are the players who, and we'll go right into it. This is my first point. A good player is a player who basically does their job. All right. Any of you who has whatever job you do, whatever business you're in, you play a sport, any team that you're a part of, and you feel like every day when you come to work, you are in 5E, I don't know how you say that name. Post a question and I'll address it at the end when I get through my points. So a good player is a player who, whatever team they're on, they show up, they do their job, they contribute. I mean, they do what they're supposed to do, but they're not changing the trajectory of the situation. A good player is a person who is an asset to the group. You do your job, you contribute. That's what a good player is. A good player is the type of person who, you put a good player on any team, what they're going to do is pretty much help maintain the status quo. That's what good players do. Any of you who has been that person or you know somebody who does that, that's what a good player does. They maintain the status quo. You put a good player on a bad team, that bad team's still going to be bad. Put a good player on a good team, the good team becomes great. Or they remain good, They remain good. And difference maker is the other person. And you put a good player on a great team, the great team will stay great. The good player is not going to mess anything up, but they're also not going to change anything. They're pretty much going to keep things how they are. The good players are the type of people who maintain the status quo. And there's nothing wrong with being a good player. Our good players are interchangeable, meaning if I got one good player on my team and that good player leaves, all I got to do is go find me another good player and slot them right in to that exact same spot, and I'm going to get the exact same results that I was getting before. If I lose a good player off my team, they're pretty easy to replace because all I have to do is just go grab another good player. They are relatively, for the most part, good players are relatively easy to find. It doesn't mean that they're not valuable, but they're relatively easy to find, good players, because, again, they maintain whatever the situation already was. Here's the challenge with good players. The challenge with being a good player and the challenge with having good players on your team is that good players can't really change a situation. All good players can do is maintain the situation. So if you need someone, if you're looking at your team, your organization, your group, your business, and you want to change the situation, you want things to be different from how they already are, then a good player is not going to be able to do that. All a good player is able to do is keep things where they're at. Everybody follow what I'm saying here? So if you want to change the situation, you got to find somebody else. Good players cannot make something out of nothing. All right? A good player is not capable of doing that. They can keep something as something, and they can keep nothing as nothing, but they can't change something, nothing. They can't change nothing to something. All right, so anyone who's going to do that alchemy, a good player is not the person who's going to do that. All they do is keep things how they are, but they cannot turn around an organization. They can't change the situation. They just maintain it. All right, that's what a good player is. Now let's talk about what a difference maker is. And we're talking the difference between good players and difference makers. Difference makers, on the other hand, this is a different type of person. Difference maker is not the person who just does their job personally. That's what a good player is. A good player just does their job. You slot them in. Hey, here's your job. Here's what you got to do. Here's the 10 things you need to do with this job. A good player just does all 10 things. They do exactly what they're told to do, nothing more and nothing less. Again, there's nothing wrong with having good players on your team. You got a bunch of good players on your team. Understand they will maintain whatever you have going. They're not going to mess it up. They're not going to make it any better. They're not going to make it different. They're just going to keep doing what you've always been doing. That's a good player. A difference maker, on the other hand, is a different breed of individual. A difference maker is a person who changes the entire trajectory of any group that they are a part of. That's what a difference maker does. You put a difference maker in the room, they change the whole situation. They start rearranging the furniture, metaphorically speaking. They start moving things around, and they adjust the situation to fit what they want and how they want things to be. That's what a difference maker does. So you have to ask yourself, first of all, looking at the people around you, are you surrounded by difference makers or are you surrounded by good players? And hopefully you don't have any bad players. So hopefully you're only looking at those two. And also then you got to look in the mirror and ask yourself, which one are you? Are you a good player who can maintain a situation, or are you a difference maker who, when you walk in the room, the whole energy of the situation changes? Are you the type of person that when we put you on the team, you can change the trajectory, you can change the direction of where that team is going? You see, the thing about a difference maker is that you put a difference maker on a bad team, that bad team is now good. You put a difference maker on a good team, the good team becomes great. You put a difference maker on a great team, that great team becomes legendary. They become historical. They become unstoppable. They become outstanding. The difference maker raises the level of any group that they're a part of. Whereas a good player, again, they can maintain the level. There's nothing wrong with maintaining, like I said. And let me be clear. Most people who are at least looking for ways to get better and improve are usually either a good player or difference maker. 97% of people are good players. They can maintain what's going on. They keep the situation as it is, but they can't really change the situation. They can't really make it better. They can't just turn the direction of the vehicle. Good players are not capable of doing that. And also, not only are they not capable of doing it, actually, let me back up. They could possibly be capable, but they're not interested in it. That's the difference between a good player and a difference maker. The good player is not interested in changing the direction of a situation and being the person who can alter the trajectory of an organization, because as soon as you identify or you show that you're that type of person who's capable of doing it, that's what everybody's going to expect from you. And when people expect you to be a difference maker, you can't vacillate. You can't turn it on one day and turn it off the next day and say, all right, well, I don't want to be a difference maker today. I just want to be a good player today. But tomorrow, when I feel like it, I'm going to be a difference maker. That's not the way the game works, folks. Whatever it is you're going to do, you got to get in it and you got to stay in it. So if you're going to be a good player, be a good player, but be a good player every day. And if you're going to be a difference maker, you got to take on all of that responsibility and you got to keep it. You can't decide, all right, I want to be the difference maker today because I'm motivated and I'm excited and I feel good and I got a full night of sleep and everything's working, so I feel like being a difference maker today. But then tomorrow, when things are not quite working the way you want them to, and you're not so excited and things aren't going the way you want, then you decide, all right, I'm gonna fall back and be a good player today. That's not the way it works, because in the professional world, and hopefully all of you are in it, professional world means you're getting paid to do something as your main occupation. When you're in the professional world, you have to decide what role you're going to play, and then you got to play that role consistently, because that's what people pay for. People do not pay for randomness. People do not pay for surprises. We pay for results, and it's three things that every high-level professional is producing. You have consistent inputs, meaning the stuff that you're doing is consistent. The same things the same way every time. Number two, you have duplicatable processes, meaning you are following systems and you are doing things over and over and over and over again. Any of you who listens to my podcast, any of you who's ever been in any of my coaching programs, you ever worked with me one-on-one, one thing you're going to notice, I say the same stuff over and over and over again. Not that I don't have different stuff to say, but there are many principles, many systems, many processes that I'm going to have you go over and over and over and over and over again, so you can almost predict what I'm going to say to you, and then you got to go do it. That's duplicatable processes. Every professional has duplicatable processes. They don't just do stuff randomly and hope that it works, no matter how talented you may believe yourself to be. And the third thing that every professional is able to produce is predictable outcomes. Consistent inputs, duplicatable processes, predictable outcomes. If you are a professional at what you do, you should be checking yes to all three of these boxes. If you cannot check yes to all three of these boxes, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means you have some work to do. That's all it means. It just means you got some work to do. Now, you could do all the work yourself. It might take you some time because you got to figure these things out, or you can go get some help. This is why, again, as I said earlier, this kind of event that I was speaking at here today, the kind of people that I saw walking around, I'm not talking about the speakers. I'm talking about the attendees, the people who bought a ticket to go to these kind of events. These are the kind of people that, if you're serious about your profession, your career, you need to go to events like this so you can associate with these kind of people. It doesn't have to be this event. They're not paying me to talk about this event. I can tell you the name of the event. It's not about this event. It's about any kind of event, because people who are serious about taking their games to the next level, they do these things. They go find these kind of places where they can show They can show themselves, they can work on their games, and they can take themselves to the next level, and they can meet other people who are trying to do the same thing. They want to meet and associate. This relationships. All right? 5 forms of investment: time, money, attention, energy, focus. Where are you putting these things to making yourself better? So I just told you the difference between a good player and a difference maker, but we're not done. Let me get to my third point here. Here's the third point. If you want to be a difference maker, you got to understand something. Here's the main thing that separates the good players from the difference maker, is that when you're a difference maker, it's not all about you. When you're a difference maker, it's not just about what you want to do and how you feel and what you contributed and what you gave to the cause. It has to be about the entire team and the success of the group, not just the success of you as an individual. And this is something that you'll notice, any of you who watches sports or any of you in any form of business. What's going on? Go give her. Appreciate the comment. Any of you who's in any form of business, you'll notice this when you listen to people talk. I notice it a lot in sports, and it's the thing that makes me not be so much of a fan of certain athletes. And you'll notice this if you really start paying attention. You'll notice with many athletes, when their team is unsuccessful, especially the player that is expected to be the difference maker, and their team is unsuccessful, and then somebody asks them about why the team was unsuccessful, you'll notice that the good players, and again, it's in their mindset, it has nothing to do with their stats. The good players usually talk about, well, what they individually did or what they individually couldn't do. They just talk about themselves. They just talk about what they're focused on individually, whereas the difference makers always talk about the team, regardless of their stats, regardless of their contract status, or regardless of what the fans think about them. Are they a superstar? Are they not? Is this person clutch? Are they better than this guy or that guy? The difference makers always, their main focus is always on the group and the organization. How do I help the organization go to a higher level? Whereas the good players are only focused on what they are individually doing. So for you, this is the takeaway. Ask yourself, what are you focused on? Are you focused on your individual stuff and what you are doing yourself, or are you focused on taking the organization, the group, the team, your family, whatever, to the next level? Difference makers are always focused on the group, because the difference maker can't be selfish and just focus on me. They got to focus on, how does what I do affect everybody else in the room? So that's a question that you should be asking yourself right now about the way that you're playing your game. Because when you're a difference maker, the game is bigger than just you. It's not just about you as an individual. It's about you. It's about what you get in taking care of yourself. It's not just about that, because good players do that. You got to see the bigger picture, and the difference makers see the entire chessboard. They see the whole game, and they're thinking about, okay, if I make this move, yes, it'll benefit me. What does it do for everybody else? That's what the difference maker, that's the conversation that's going on in their minds all the time. It's not just the part that pertains to you. And there's a lot more responsibility to be a difference maker than it is a good player. You see, a good player is the type of person who works 9 to 5. And this is a metaphor here. I'm not talking about the actual clock. See, a good player is a person who, if the job says be here at 9 and you get to leave at 5, they get there at 9 and they leave at 5. As soon as that clock strikes 5, they are clocking out and they're getting the hell out of there. They're in their car in the parking lot by 5:01. That's a good player. Difference makers don't have that luxury. Difference makers can't just clock out because they feel like they did everything they need to do that day. Difference makers don't judge their work based on what I personally did. They judge their work on, where's the team at? Where's the organization at? And what can I do, or what should I do, or what am I doing that can help move the organization forward, not just what am I doing for myself. Good players think about themselves first and last. Difference makers think about the organization, the team, first and last. There's a lot more work to think about the organization and the team than it is to just think about yourself. You only got to focus on yourself, then, you only got to focus on yourself, just you. But as soon as you bring other people into the fold and other people are depending on you, now you're responsible for multiple people. And that leadership position, all right, that's the kind of, and just like I said, like this event that I'm at, this is a room full of people who are in leadership positions. They're either in one or they're about to be in one. All the people who approached me when I got off the stage today, I'm speaking, were all telling me, look, I'm in a leadership position right now. I just got promoted. I got these kind of people on my team. I'm trying to become this type of person. There's a guy I was just talking to. His name was Josh. And he bought a couple of my books. The third day, he bought Work on Your Game. I signed them for him, and he was telling me, I just got promoted to team leader. And look, I got people on my team who I want them to be difference makers, and I think they had a potential. I'm trying to help them. And I personally need to be a difference maker, Dre. What are the things that I need to do to take myself to the next level? You know what I told him? I referred him to 2 episodes of my Work on Your Game podcast. So those of you who are not listening to my masterclass, I call it podcast sometimes, so y'all know what I'm talking about. But my Work on Your Game masterclass, this is not for play. All right, this is not for fun. This is not just for jokes. I give this stuff to people who are seriously, professionally, their careers are depending on their ability to step their game up. So the stuff that I tell y'all on that podcast is real talk conversation that can help you take your professional and personal life to the level that you want to get at. If you are really listening to what I'm saying and you go apply the stuff that I'm talking about and you want help applying that stuff, I gave you the link right there, workonyourgameuniversity.com. I will work with you and help you take that stuff to the next level, but you got to be serious about going there. A lot of people pay lip service to this stuff. They talk about going to the next level, but they're not really taking the steps to actually get there. If you're ready to take the steps and you're willing to take the steps to get there, send me a text. My number is I'll put my number right here. So any of you want to get my daily motivation text and you want to be able to text me directly, that's my number right there. Send me a text. I will help you. I will show you. You'll be getting my daily motivation every day. Listen to my masterclass, workonyourgamepodcast.com, and apply the stuff that I'm telling you. I'm giving you the game there. Now, you want to know how do you apply the stuff that I'm talking about. That's where you come work with me directly. That's why you go to events. That's why you get a coach. That's why you join programs so that you can take this stuff to the next level. High-level individuals do this stuff automatically, folks. So these things, you'll know I talk about this stuff all the time. High-level individuals do this stuff that I'm talking about right now all the time, and they don't need anybody to tell them to do it because it was taught to them by their mothers and their fathers. It was taught to them by the older people around them when they were growing up. So those of you who don't know about this stuff, if this is new information to you, okay, now you got the information. So now you don't have any excuse. Now it's time for you to catch up because this stuff wasn't taught to me. When I was growing up, my parents weren't talking about go to events and get a coach and take yourself to the next level. They weren't talking about that kind of stuff. They weren't talking about personal development. They taught me how to read books. We had books in the house, but it wasn't like personal development, stuff like that. I had to go figure that stuff out on my own. But once I figured it out, I didn't have any excuse. I couldn't say, well, my parents didn't tell me this. Like, how you a grown man or woman talking about your parents? It makes no sense. It's time for you got to take the reins and take responsibility for these situations and moving yourself to the next level. So to be a difference maker, folks, again, it's not just about you. It's not just about what you want. It's about taking yourself to that next level. And that means you got to be thinking about the team and not just thinking about you. You can't just clock out 9 to 5. All right. And I did a whole episode on how to go from the good player to the difference maker. There's a whole process to that. Those are episodes 2079, and let me make sure I'm giving you the right episodes. So any of you who are serious about this and you want to go to the next level, let me tell you what episodes that was. Episodes 2079 and 2080. Work on Your Game podcast. Work on Your Game masterclass. Episodes 2079 and 2080 is about good players versus difference makers. How do you do it? So the 3 points. Number 1, good player is a person who is able to maintain the status quo and keep things as they are. Number 2, the difference maker is a person who changes the trajectory of an organization. You bring a difference maker in, they can change the whole situation. A good player maintains the situation. Difference maker changes the situation. And number 3, if you want to become a difference maker, understand it is no longer just about you, it's about everybody. So you're not just responsible for yourself anymore. You're responsible for everyone who's in the organization. And even if that means you got to take on things that are not your responsibility or they're not your fault, let's just say, they become your responsibility because you're trying to help people get to the next level. So all that being said, let me take questions. If you got a question, go ahead and post it in the comments section. What's going on? Armani.com. You got a question, post in the comments section. I'm going to address those right now. Arbinu M, what's going on? Appreciate you. 5E, you said you sent me a DM. You got questions whenever I have the time. All right. Arbinu said Dinwiddie on the Mavs made him great. Well, I will call him more of a good player. I think their difference maker is Luka, but you put good people around a difference maker, it just enhances their ability to make a difference. But I get what you're saying. I get the idea. Go give her, yes, you got it right. Consistent inputs, duplicatable processes, predictable outcomes. Every professional has all 3. If you are missing one of those 3, it's like a 3-legged stool missing a leg. Go give her, you getting those daily motivation texts. Shout out to everybody who's getting the daily motivation text. Y'all can get that by texting me at my number, 305-384-6894 is right there in the comment section. Text me at that number, and every day when I send out the daily motivation, guess what? You will be getting it. Arvin says, is there still 2 kinds of universities? Not combine them. So the university is combined. So if you're in the university, you're in the university, and we talk personal and professional development on all the training calls and all the material inside it. I just posted a video to there yesterday that I saw that I think is really useful for all the, especially the entrepreneurs, but everybody actually in the group. I just posted that in the member community yesterday. So we got a member-only community as well for everybody who's in the university. Again, that's workonyourgameuniversity.com, which y'all see down here. Amani said 2079 and 2080. Yes, shout out to the people who got it, who have listened to that already. Aswan, how did it come about? I sold myself, Aswan. You know the deal. How do I get... So somebody was asking me this yesterday. I was talking about I was doing a speaking gig. I sold myself. I know how to sell myself. That's how I get on stages. Now, it used to be that you did a lot of... when I first got in the game, like 2014, 15, you would do a lot of... like you could do cold calling. At least when I first got in the game, my mentor was telling me, yo, just get on the phone and make calls. And I didn't have a problem doing that. So I got really good at, let me not even say really good. It's not like I was like closing everybody, but I was comfortable making calls. A lot of people are just uncomfortable having conversations with human beings. You can't sell anything, you're uncomfortable having conversations with people. Even if you're selling on the internet, because if you're uncomfortable communicating, then you're not going to be able to do it on the internet, let alone in person. So the way you communicate online is related to the way you communicate in person. So if you're not a good communicator in person, you won't be a good communicator on the internet. So just because you can put up a website doesn't mean the game doesn't mean it automatically becomes easy. So the way that you do it nowadays, a lot of it is online, just based on your marketing. How do you talk about yourself? If somebody looks you up, what do they see? How are you presenting yourself? And if they put out a call like, hey, we're looking for speakers for this conference, tell us what you want to talk about, who you are, what benefit does it have for people. And you got to write that down in a way that convinces, not even convinces is not the right word, in a way that compels other people to be interested. And these decisions for this kind of conference, they make these decisions by committee. So it's like, who knows? This kind of organization is probably 20, 30 people making a decision about who they want to bring in and why and what they're going to talk about and all this stuff. So who knows? I don't even know the insides of how they actually do it. I really don't give a damn, honestly. And really in the big picture, I'm more focused on my internal list and the people that I work with directly, because I have more control over that. These kind of events is cool when I do them, but if I don't do these, I'm fine with that as well. I don't need these. I used to focus on these. I don't focus on these anymore. I focus on my internal world and building my own list, because that's what I control, that's what I own, and that's what I can take with me. I can't take a speaking gig with me. Once the gig is over, it's over. Ain't nothing else to do with it. So anyway, Arvin says, speaking in front of a crowd is easy as walking to you nowadays, like you never get nerves or anything. Yes, I would actually say that, yes. Because I've done it so much. I did it, a lot of it on the internet, but the internet in real life, actually talking to actual humans in a room, is different. But I did a podcast episode on this, how to get comfortable with public speaking. And one of the keys, I did this and I could actually tell you the keys to good public speaking. Number one, you must know your topic really well. When you know your topic really well, you're not nervous because you know exactly what you're talking about and you know that it's valuable and useful to other people. Number two, you got to care about the topic. So I could tell you what it's like to flip burgers at McDonald's, but I don't care about the topic, so I wouldn't be a good speaker on that subject. So pick a topic that you actually give a damn about. Today I gave a speech called The Third Day. I know about that. I wrote a book about it, and I talk about it all the time. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is you got to be prepared. Just practice. Practice what you're talking about. So I prepare ahead of time when I give my presentations. Even if I'm giving the same speech. I've given a speech called Work on Your Game probably 20 times. I've given a speech Third Day probably close to that many times. The reason why I'm able to give it smoothly is because I practice the speech. Even though I had given the speech before I got on the stage today, I spent time leading up to this event practicing my speech, even though I said it before. I already know everything I'm going to say. So preparation, knowing your topic, and picking a topic that you give a damn about so that there's some energy behind your words, all of those things matter for good public speaking. And just practice, getting your time in and putting those hours in, basically those 10,000 hours, so to speak. So all that said, if anybody else got a question, I'll take a question or two more, then we wrap this up because I got a call coming up at the top of the hour. So if you got a question, go ahead and post it right now. The biggest thing for any of you who wants to get into the speaking business is your frameworks. Biggest thing is your framework, because your framework is what sells the speech. Nobody knows how good of a speaker you are until you actually get on the stage. But if you can't sell yourself to get on the stage, nobody will ever know that you're a good speaker because they won't hear you because they won't book you. So the way you get booked is through your framework. Your framework is what sells the speech. So when I'm telling somebody I want to give a speech called The Third Day, I don't give them the whole speech. I don't like record myself giving an hour-long speech and then say, hey, take a look at this. Nobody's going to watch an hour-long speech. They glance at your stuff for like 30 seconds. And in that 30 seconds, they decide if they're interested or not. That's how it works. So any of you who didn't know, now you know. And the way that you win that 30 seconds is your framework. Your framework is taking everything that you do and you condense it down to a bite-sized, digestible format that someone else can look at and they can understand what it's about and understand why they should care in short order. That's a framework. I've talked about frameworks a lot, and as one, I know you know I've talked about frameworks, but I talked about it at Work on Your Game Live. I also talked about it on my podcast before, and I will be talking about it again in the future. When I write a book on business, I never wrote a book that's specifically on business, but when I do, frameworks will be a part of it. So stay tuned for that. All right, I don't see any other questions. So everybody, text me to get my daily motivation text. That number, 305-384-6894. It is the link in my bio. Yes, the link in my bio here on Instagram is also the button that says text. WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com for any of you who's you're ready to get serious about all these things you're talking about doing, and now you're ready to actually do them. Go to WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com, invest in yourself, and let's get your game where it needs to go. And we'll leave it at that. Those are all the things I need to say. So that is everything that y'all need to know. I got a call coming up in a minute. It's like 95 out here in Orlando. So wherever y'all are, I know it's summertime. In many of your places, or at least it's hot like summertime. Make sure you're staying hydrated, and don't take in too much salt. If you do, make sure you're drinking water. Stay hydrated. Let the skin look good and keep the toxins out of your body. Everybody have a great afternoon. Work on your game. We out here.